What are all the things that you need to know and pick up to become a Power Apps Pro? Perhaps you want to be the office superhero and you're going to use the Power Platform as a tool to make a huge impact in your organization. Or eventually you want to be a freelancer, be your own boss, pick up some freelancing uh, gigs, clients. Perhaps you want to get into the software industry and sell software that you build with your Power Apps. So that is the topic of the discussion today, where we're going to be going over all the topics that I know and I believe that you should be focusing on to become the Power Apps Pro that you want to become. All right, so let's jump into this, guys. I'm going to keep an eye on the comments as this is of course, a live stream on Saturday morning. Right. So I'm going to put some things out here that are probably a little obvious. Okay. You should know. I'm going to say most of uh, Power Apps. I'm going to add some stuff in here because a little X there for the next one. Obviously, you're going to know. I'm going to say within Power Apps, there are a set of functions that you should know. Now, if you do a search here on YouTube, you'll pick up I believe it was a live stream where I talked about the 20 functions that you need to master in order to become a Power Apps master. And I would include those here. Um, I would probably say there's probably more than 20 because it was really hard to pick those 20 when I did that. I don't know the exact number count of functions, but let's put it here at approximately 30. Have I used every single function within Power Apps? No. Am I able to use Power Apps as a tool to create apps for employers or freelance clients? Yes. So there are, put a period there. Hopefully there we go. Um, like there's some trigonometry functions in there. I've never used, I probably never will. I might look into them if you guys would like to learn them, but yeah, there are some functions that I've never used. So it's not that you need to know all of them. So this is what I'm talking about. Have you guys ever heard of the 80-20 rule? So the rule goes like this: 80% of what you do is only 20% of let's say 80% of the time I use just 20% of Power Apps. You know, I'm sure there are controls that I've never used. Not all of them, but you definitely need. Maybe I'll list them here in order, but I'm just going to think about all these things here, and what I would say, I'm going to put coding on here. I'm going to put Power FX, and I do see Ratish here. Thanks for joining me this morning, Ratish. Do you teach from basic? I do. I have lots of content on every level. So we do run a school community, Ratish. If you're a part of that, I actually have a whole section in the classroom tab um, that has a lot of the beginner level material out there, and I do offer a free crash course. So there are some things here that would be basic stuff that I would recommend a beginner to know. Okay, and you're going to see some of this. So and in a little bit, I'm gonna be touching on how you can pick up all of these things. Um, you could learn all these things in a short amount of time. So what I like to do is I like to find serious-minded students that are really serious about Power Apps, and I like to accelerate them getting to their goal. And that goal might be to be the office superhero or to become a Power Apps freelancer. Typically, you're using Power Apps to make money. I do enjoy Power Apps, but if there was absolute no demand in the business world for it, I probably wouldn't be doing anything with it, you know? Yeah, thanks for asking. So you're asking for the links. Let me make sure that that is in the video description below, because I typically do include that specific link to get to all my free stuff. So I'm going to make sure that that is in here. I feel sort of silly that I didn't already have that here. Let me, okay, if you're on YouTube, it is now in the video description. Okay, there's a link and it says get all Darren's free stuff, and you'll get free access to my community, my crash course, and actually quite a bit of stuff in there. A lot of those basic level videos are listed out really nice in probably the order that I would suggest looking at them in. Yeah. All right. Very good. And July. Hello. I was born in July. Okay, so within Power Apps, you need to know functions. Let me see if I can zoom in on Obsidian. I guess Obsidian doesn't allow me to zoom in here, not even Control Plus. Okay, that's fine. So we got functions, controls, and I would say approximate, and this is just off the top of my head. I haven't gone through all the controls, all the functions, and coming up with an exact number. That's why I'm saying approximately 20 controls. What else within Power Apps should you know? Imperative coding. That's going to be essential. And what I would put in here, app on start, app formulas. Is it formulas or formula? I'm not sure. I'd have to be within Power Apps to do that. Yeah, good morning to you, Claudio. Thanks for joining, guys. And then screen on start. These are very important. And the app formulas isn't imperative. So I'm going to say event coding. And formulas is not event, but you could call routines from there. The app formula is actually declarative and not imperative. Now let's see if I add something here. Okay. So you absolutely should master. I'll put the word master use of variables. So I'm going to say globals, and I'm going to say here use sparingly. Now that's not because I'm worried about how much memory that you're using on the web server in Microsoft data centers or the browser's memory of the people using your apps. The reason is I wholeheartedly believe that it lends itself for bugs in your app. In globals, you're going to use the set function. And what happens if you use another set function? So you're going to use the same code, the same set function to create the variable and also put something in there. And which, like if you got the set function 5 times in your application, which one is actually declaring the variable? That's a great question. All of them? None of them? But if you don't have that first set, then the variable doesn't exist. You try to reference a variable that doesn't exist, then Power Apps is like, I don't know what to do with that. So you have to use a set in order to create the variable, but you're also always putting a value in there. What happens if you misspell that first parameter, which is the variable name? You might start to believe that they're the same variable when they're separate. What happens if you, so this is something that I did, and it caused me hours, if not a day or two or longer. Bugs will eat up a lot of your time and is so bad for your software development productivity. If you can do everything you can to minimize bugs, introducing bugs into your application, it's well worth it. What I would do, I wasn't misspelling variables, but let's say I said GBL, which is the recommended best practice for Microsoft for naming your global variables, the GBL. GBL customer record versus GBL customer versus GBL, GBL current customer. So even if I'm not misspelling them, I would do stuff like this. I'm like, which one? And Microsoft does provide something on the left side of the pane. So that's a good point, July. What about Power Automate? Let me put in here. Yeah, I will say not only Power Automate, but what about just being well-rounded in the Power Platform? And I would say Power Automate is essential because you're going to need it to create files. Not all the time. You can have attachment control that allows people to upload files. You can use the PDF function to create a file. Now, and then you can take these files and attach them to an email and send that out. Did we have to use Power Automate? We could have, but we don't have to. But what about kicking off a process nightly or in the, when nobody's when no one is in the app? And if somebody's always in the app, let's say it's a hospital and there's always somebody using the app, there's like different shifts or something, you could put code in app on start or a screen.on visible, not on start, visible. So creating files, I'm going to say for OneDrive, SharePoint, etc. So there's lots of uses for Power Automate. Now, we had a workshop yesterday on doing HTTP requests for SharePoint or anything else. You can do HTTP requests for other things besides SharePoint, but we use that for creating SharePoint sites. We discuss creating lists and fields. But if you want to check that out, that is a workshop that I made publicly available. So that should be available if you go to my live streams. It should be the video right before this one. Okay, so absolutely. Claudio, in application support, something common is the use of a competitor to load collections. A competitor? And sometimes make does not calculate correctly, and error messages occur. Use of a competitor. Now, I'm not, concurrent functions. Yeah, concurrent functions. Okay. Okay, so there are a few things that you put in there. Concurrent is good to know for performance. Absolutely, I would agree with that. So we got a lot of stuff to add to this. So thanks for joining me, guys. Continue with the ideas, and I'm going to mix them with things that I know that should be in there. Very thirsty this morning. All right. So what I'm going to think here about is what can I not do in Power Apps? and I have to lean on Power Automate for. Now, I would recommend having some knowledge of Power BI. The more Power BI you know, doesn't hurt at all. But for the most part, I've created lots of great reports within Power Apps for what people like to see mostly. Now, if I'm working with somebody that is good with Power BI, I allow them to do that, and I'll either import it or I'll link to their report. Yeah, incorrect use of the function. Oh, concurrent. Yeah, very good. But let's put in here. Um, well, and if you're not using Dataverse, let's say you're using SharePoint because you don't have the premium licensing, then you'll just be using SharePoint. But I would recommend knowing about Dataverse because it's a part of the Power Platform. And at some point, if you move on to a different job or work with other clients, you will come across an organization that has no problem paying for the premium licensing. They already have it. So why would you use SharePoint? Um, because Dataverse is so much more of a robust, better performing data source than SharePoint. So I would throw that in there as well. Hello, Frode. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Hello from Norway. Well, hello from Orlando. Okay. Now within coding, this is stuff that you would need to know how to approach things in any programming language. Okay. So I'm going to say looping, and I probably put branching. So here we're talking about using the if function. We're also talking about using switch, the switch function. And of course, these would be up here, you know, but just in case somebody doesn't know what I mean when I say branching or sometimes looping is called iteration. And of course, we have different ways of doing this. Now, the first thing that should come to mind is your for all. But what about using a timer control? It has event properties like on start, on timer start. Oh, come on. Timer start, on timer end. Any other ways of looping? Okay. What are other things within coding? Now, I have a whole live stream. If you do a search for Darren Neese and Power FX, you should see that. And there are lots of good things in here. In fact, variable use. I probably almost moved that down there. Let's see if I can do that with Obsidian. Yeah. In any programming language, you have to master the use of variables. But let's talk about the other variables. We have locals, and that's going to be update context function. What other type of variables do we have? Well, we do have with block. It's a block of code that you have. The first parameter are all the variables that you create for that block of code. I'm going to say with function, a block of code. Oh, collections. So when you use collect, clear, collect, you're creating a global variable. Hopefully you're using a COL as the prefix for that. Clear, clear, collect. And, oh, you also have collect. Yeah. I'm looking at an outline I have up here on my other screen, sort of picking out the things I would identify as perhaps what you should be focusing on. Um, the 20% of power apps of out of all the skills, the 20% that you'll be using 80% of the time. And perhaps I'll list those here in a bit. I know on the controls, gallery has got to be number one. Number one, buttons. Now we could say labels and everything, but there's not that much to label or even buttons. But you should have used these. So now some of these you have modern and classic. I'm going to say labels. I'm also going to say data listing. So you have multiple records. And I'm going to put the gallery in there. Now, what about the drop down combo box? Now, there's so many that would fall into this category. I wouldn't even recommend you wasting your time with. Okay, not. Don't worry about the list box if you don't already know it. Okay, don't worry about the classic table control. Um, Now you should have, let's say, Boolean controls. So I'm going to say toggles, checkboxes. Those are good. What do I think about business rules? Um, I think in some cases they are essential. Yeah. So somebody actually gave me a use case, and I'm like, yeah, you'd have to use a business rule for that. Um, I think it was having a default value because you could do that within SharePoint, you could do that within SQL Server, and if I'm not mistaken, that is what you have to use for a default value for a field, you know. So what I think of Dataverse in general is that it's a very good database system. It's going to be very robust because it's SQL Server. It's got some lipstick on it. It's got some things I would say think like features bolted on top of it to sort of take away much of the learning curve. Um, I think SQL Server for most people that are picking up Power Apps that don't have prior experience with databases is a bit much of a learning curve, especially at first. Now, if you stick around here, I love using SQL Server, just a regular SQL Server as a data source. But yeah, Dataverse has the things that you use like business rules to make it more of a complete, comprehensive database system. Okay. Now, as far as in functions, I would say definitely filter, lookup, if, switch, for all, set, update context. I hope I don't come up with more than 30. I'm going to say one of my favorite AI tools is Perplexity. And I'm going to ask it, list off all Power Apps functions sorted in the order of essential and must know to the least used. Okay. So this is going to give me lots of ideas. I love AI for brainstorming or giving some ideas, and after it gets my mind going in that direction, typically that's what I needed to get my brain in gear. All right. So what it's got here, I'm going to try it. Let's see, control up arrow. I was hoping that would move it up for me. Nope. There's a way to move this up. But so collections, yeah. So we got collect, and I'm also going to throw in here clear collect. They're not the same function, but they're very closely related. Collect, the clear collect does exactly what collect does, except it clears it completely out before it does it. And I should probably put clear in here as well. Definitely sort, and I'm also going to throw in here sort by columns. Again, they are not the same function, but they're very closely related. Now they do work differently. They're not so similar like collect and clear collect, but you could just say sorting. Navigate, launch, put filter. Obviously you're filtering, but it's like it will returns 0 to many records based on criteria in the second argument. So there we go, criteria. If you say filter on my users, I'm like, you start to write, I'm like, oh, I just want everyone. Just put the word true in there and you're going to get everyone. So the criteria as the second parameter should evaluate to a true or false value. So if you give it true, it's going to give you everything. Let's say you just wanted to get all of the schema information into a variable. Well, you put false there. Let's say you're doing like a disconnected application and you're going to fill a collection in your app and you don't want to get any of the data from the database. You put the keyword or the value false in there, and it will give you 0 records, but it will have all the schema information. Should be great. Okay, look up. Returns the first record it comes to based on the criteria. What's great about filter and lookup is you could, in a filter, replace this with lookup, and it would, of course, give you 1 row or 0 to 1 row. based on that second parameter. But if you start to write one or the other and you're like, oh, actually I want all of them, then you could change the lookup to a filter. But there's something to know about the lookup is that two parameters, you get a record. 3 parameters get you a single value because the third parameter is the column. The is the name of the column that you want to get at, and you want that to be returned as a single value. Okay, so is it possible to generate barcodes with Power Apps? Now, I haven't done a lot with barcodes and Power Apps yet. I would imagine it would be, and if Power Apps doesn't have the capability inside of it, you always have there's over 1,000 connectors you could tie into. You could tie into Power Automate. You could write your own custom connector. If there's an API out there, you could create a custom connector that would tie into an API. So it looks like barcodes are so both Tarek and Nitzuma mentioned barcodes. Maybe we should have a live stream on barcodes or a workshop. And then Elvis. Hey, Elvis. Elvis is an expert in everything that perhaps I haven't done before. I haven't had the need to do a barcode scanner, but so Elvis says it involves process though. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Elvis. All right. So what other functions should we have in here? We have filter, we have sort. Oh, patch is a big one. Yeah, I would put patch up here. Now it says, let's see here, text to change a number to a string or text, but also formatting. And I have a whole structured video on the text function. So just do a search in YouTube for my name, text function, and it should come right up. We do have navigate. We do have launch. I would say count rows would be. Now, something I'd almost like to do is turn all these to numbers so I know how many I have. Ooh, here we go. I thought I saw it. Yeah, here we go. Numbered list. Okay. This is good. I like it. All right, so we got count rows. I would put distinct in here. All right, yeah, distinct. Now, search is I've mixed emotions about search because most people do use SharePoint. Like I would say around 70% use SharePoint because they don't have the premium licensing. Search can have delegation issues with SharePoint, and instead you might want to use filter along with starts with. But that requires them to type the first part of whatever they're searching for. You know, if they're searching for the name Darren, they can't be typing in REN. You see my name here at the bottom of this, or right there. If they didn't type the D, and we did the starts with, then you may not find it. um, but sometimes what I'll do, even with search, is I will filter, then search within. So I filter to get it under that 2000 record maximum, and then I do a search inside, and that sort of gives you the best of both worlds. Maybe I'll put this as another one there. Okay. Now I don't like what it did here. It said 16 and then 18. So that is so weird. I'm going to format this as bullet list just for those two. And I still go from 16 to 18. What about these guys? 1, 2, 3. That's interesting. Ugh. So weird. Group by. That's a good one, Mark. Yeah. Yeah, we'll add that in. Also, what about date functions? So date functions, we have date, add. Let me see. Yeah, date, add. Now, today. There are enumerations that you should know. Like, in order to get at the 140 web colors within your code, you say color dot, you know. Okay, let's see here. Trim. I would put trim in there. GUID, if you ever need to create a GUID. There are some cases where you want to use a GUID, um, like generate something that you know that you're sure is going to be unique in the universe. Yeah, color fade, absolutely. What about length? It's LEN. What about color value? I use that a lot. What about RGBA? I'd put that in there. Um, put width in there. Now they added a table function in here, and to be honest, I always try to use what I found is square brackets are better if you can use them in the context. So I'll just say if you can. So what I found is when I create, let's say, a variable using the table function, and I try to use a collection type of function with it, I've had errors, red squigglies that will tell me it's like, hey, that's not a collection. You're treating it like a collection, but it's not a collection. When I created it using a table function, but then I take the table function out and I use these square brackets, the square brackets will give you a collection, like a real collection value. But what's so wild about Power Apps is if you go to a collection variable, the data type is going to tell you table. So it seems like Power Apps is a little confused between a table value and a collection value. Most of the time, they're considered the same thing, but if you ever have any problems with it, I would recommend using the square brackets. Do I have width in here? Yeah, number 29. Okay. I would put coalesce, notify, yeah, char. especially if you need a carriage return line feed. Where's Matt when you need him? I tell you. Okay. And if you want to use one and not use both, I would say char 10. I'm going to say carriage return, and over here, this is going to be line feed. That comes back from the days of typewriters. You hit the bar you slap a bar at the end when you're done with a line. I don't think there was any type of word wrap with typewriters. You slap that bar, and the carriage that would sit there and strike out the the characters. Yeah, that would move. I guess that's called a carriage, and you slap that bar, and it would make it go all the way off to the left, and then the line feed, it would actually feed it up one. Yeah, I haven't done the trim. Well, you haven't used the trim function. Trim function removes spaces before and after, at each end, and I believe in Power Apps it actually takes out duplicate spaces in the middle too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Turns like a superhero when he uses with. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, that's probably because whenever you learn coding, there's like a set of things that you do in your mind um, that are similar, and in other languages that they're with blocks. So for years I've been doing complex things with in other languages. So when I get into Power Apps and I've got a with function, I'm like, oh yeah, I just need to do this, this, and this, because over repetition of years and years, you sort of develop muscle memory. I don't know what muscles are involved in that. Maybe brain muscles. Okay, what other functions? Um, it's got some others here, but what I would say, like, what functions could you not live without? I mean, I could live without switch as long as I have if, but that's really essential to any development language you're in, like PowerFX. You should have an if, you should have a switch. Patching, um, we could, let me think. I mean, there are a lot of them not listed here. I tell you, and you might end up using them in your app, but I'm just thinking of the core essential ones. Like if you only knew these, you'd be able to do 90% of the stuff. Oh, yeah. How can one create a different view in Power Apps for a user and an admin? Well, that's a great question. Let me ask you a question. Zuma, what is the criteria by which you know if they are an admin or not? So what I would do is, if those are the only two roles that you have, it would come down to saying, are they an admin or not? Because if they're not an admin, they're a user. So just create all the screens for a user and then make admin like the exception to things. Okay. Now I could give you a really simple way to do it. It's not the way I would recommend doing it in an app though. Let's say we got a button and that button's going to take you to an admin screen. So inside that button in the on select, you would say navigate to the admin screen. Okay. But then go into the visible property of the button, and you could check the user's email. Oh, the user function. Yeah, the user function is really important. Absolutely. So the user function is going to give us full name, email, intra ID, and also their I think they call it picture or image. It might be image. And it's their profile photo. And probably what I would check is an email. And what happens if you have, like, I don't know, You got thousands of users and you got like 30 admins. Well, you wouldn't be want to be checking for all those emails. You probably do a check within Azure AD, which is now Intra. There is a connector called Office 365 Users, and it allows you to get at like their job title, find out what department they're in, that type of stuff. Um, I have a whole workshop based on creating an org chart. So if you ever want to like know more about that, we spent a whole workshop on really delving in and getting at all the profile information of people that are in AD or Intra and finding out who their boss is, who their colleagues are, like peers that they normally work with, and then their direct reports. So you could create a whole org chart based on that. Um, and based on that information, you can determine if they're an admin. So let me know, how do you know if they're an admin or not? Are you going to have a database full of like users and then you have a column called admin, So you would hide or show things based on that information, you know? I could give you a more specific answer if you give me more specifics. It looks like he just did. One last question I would like to ask is why does the assigned to column doesn't show the person assigned to, but in my SharePoint list, there is a record. Is that a column that SharePoint always creates? Because I'm not sure that I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Now, I don't use, I'm gonna bring, well, let me make myself small here. I don't need to be so big. There we go. Okay. So I'll go into site contents. We'll add a new list, blank list. I'll call it my list. There we go. Add columns, show or hide columns. And let me put myself to the side so I'm not covering up anything. I always like to see ID. Well, that's the primary unique identifier column there. Modified, created, attachment, type. Okay, so you're looking for the assigned to. Okay. I'm going to hit apply. Now let's go into the settings for this list and see if there's anything here. I don't see anything there. Now if I go back to my list and go into editing the current view, I'm not seeing any assigned to here either. Okay. So I'm not sure what you're talking about. You have to give me some more information. And Elvis says, I usually use switch function to return a particular view. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I like that. All right, let's go back to Obsidian here. And I'm going to be jumping into Power Apps here after a while. But yeah, so we got the user function. I'm going to go through this list I have on this other screen. Do I have distinct in here? Because that's one that you'll probably use at some point. Yeah, there we go. There's distinct. I would put remove. That's how you delete. Now, a lot of times I don't use remove. I don't allow deletions in my apps, and I'll tell you why. Because you might be thinking, well, yeah, that's yeah, you might need to delete stuff, right? Well, consider this. Consider creating a column called is active, and this is what this feature is actually built into Dataverse, and I like it. You have a is active. It could be, or you could have status, and it'd be active, inactive, or something. Deleted. The only reason I delete any data is if it's test data, and I want to clean it up. Otherwise, if it was real data, I want to make it inactive or logically delete it. Like having a column that says, you create a column called is deleted if you want. I sort of like that status idea because it could be active, inactive, deleted. You know, if it is beyond a certain age, like after 5 or 7 or 10 years, you don't want to take up any space. And if it hasn't been touched or updated in 7 to 10 years, perhaps it's your policy to delete it. You know, maybe one of the status would be delete me, and then you have a process that runs once a month that, actually deletes things that have been marked for deletion. But how many times has somebody deleted something, anything electronically, and they wanted to get it back? Maybe they deleted it accidentally, or maybe they intended on deleting it and then realized later that they shouldn't have. And they're running to IT like, oh my goodness, help me out. I accidentally deleted something. Um, so if you take my advice here, it's sort of like having a built-in recycle bin. You can make it easy to bring that data back. And sometimes people they just like to delete stuff thinking they're cleaning stuff up, but data is the lifeblood of anyone's business. And a lot of times it's good to have historical data. Let me give you an example. I do have, if you sign up for all my free stuff down in the video description below on YouTube. Now on the other platforms, I didn't include it initially, but if you go to YouTube and look at this video description, there's a link to get my free stuff, get in the community, get my crash course and a lot of other stuff for free. You get put into my CRM database. And if somebody says, unsubscribe, delete me from your list, do I delete them? No, and I don't do that for their benefit. Okay, so my CRM system will mark them. Hey, do not. I think it's D&D. Do not disturb. Do not notify. Don't do anything. Because let's say their boss or their colleague signed them up for it. Like, oh yeah, you need to get some Darren stuff, and they put that person's email address into my database. Would I be willing to delete it? Absolutely. But consider this. Let's say if it happens again, like if I delete them and then I don't know, maybe they sleepwalk and at night they hang out on my website and they enter their information again. Well, my CRM would be smart enough not to add them again, but it would see that they've marked themselves as do not be notified. So I actually want to keep their information so that I follow up on that I'm treating that record ethically, and that, hey, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to disturb this person or send them any more information because that's what they've requested. That's an example I'm thinking of. I'm not trying to make any type of business policy and recommend one way or the other. But that's a good example, I think. What about a car dealership? When I was creating a database, an ERD diagram early in my career for a car dealership, I'm like, okay, well, the VIN is unique. So now I don't need some other ID. What happens if you sell a car brand new and it has a VIN, of course? Every car's got a VIN, a vehicle identification number. 10 years later, they come back, buy another car, and they give you their old one as a trade-in. Now there's the same VIN. Do you want to treat it as if it's the same car? I would say no. Now it's a used car and it's got different properties. Perhaps there's rust on it and the mileage is different and all this type of stuff. You got historical data when that car was sold as brand new, and here's one that you need to sell in business, thinking in a business process type of way. That's really like a separate type of thing, and I would want to, so having that historical information. One of my accelerator students works for a very large luxury type of car manufacturer, and they'll bring in the car for, let's say, repairs for collisions. and they'll ask for a loaner car, and they'll give them one, and then they'll bring that one back all banged up. And I guess this is like really common. So they need to take photos of the loaner cars before and after because they have to be held responsible. Or the next time they try to bring in their beat up new car and want a loaner, like, no, we gave you a loaner last time, and you had another collision or something. So his historical type of data is really important. So for that reason, I'm out. No, for that reason, I don't commonly let users really delete something. But I would say you do need to know how to do it. Of course, that was a little tangent, huh? Upper and lower. I would agree with that, Mark. So it looks like this is going to be about 40. All right, not 30. So yeah, let's add those. We've got lower, upper. Have you guys used proper? Proper casing is the first letter of each word would be uppercase. So let's say people type in their name all caps or all lowercase. Well, you might want to capitalize the first letter in each word within their name. So you'd use proper for that. Now, Elvis says, show columns, add columns, look up, patch. I I would say, yeah, show columns, add columns. There's also remove columns. Yeah, I would say. Now, I do have patch and lookup already there. I'm going to make this one because you're probably going to learn these all together. Okay. Show columns, add columns, remove columns. Did I hear that you're using a CRM that isn't Power Apps? Yeah, I am. There's all kinds of integration that my CRM system does. It's quite feature rich. Um, yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff that it provides that would probably take me a while, even to create it in Power Apps. Um, merge columns, VIN, and car status. There's just like there's different ways of doing things. Like me personally, I almost hate the edit form control. I also hate the view form control as well. Yeah, I don't use forms. I always recommend using patch. Now, if we are going to use forms, okay, well, we got submit form, we got new form, we got edit form, and then we also have the form, I think it's called last submitted. If you're going to use forms, then you'll need to know those. So what I was going to say about databases, Fonzie brought up merge column, VIN, and car status. There's only two types of IDs that I use, with the weird exception of one thing, and I'll tell you what that is here in a second. So SharePoint has a column for every list you create. It's called ID, and it's an auto incrementing number. It is unique within that list. And I would say that is the most common type of unique identifier primary key for a database table. So within SQL Server, it is called identity. There is a superior ID, a way of creating IDs, and that's to use GUIDs or unique identifiers. The problem with GUIDs is that they're really long and they look really ugly and nasty, you know. And if you're working on an application, you could look up, let's say, a customer ID is 303, and I go over to this table in the sales. I'm like, looking for 303. Boom, there's 303. Okay. Now GUID is like this long string of numbers, hexadecimal numbers. It's just sort of hard to look at and match up and that type of stuff. But it's superior because if you ever have to merge databases, let's say across locations, let's say I own like 5 different car dealerships, and I've got a customer table in each one, and then once a week, all the data gets merged in at the headquarters. Well, if they had their local customer table of an auto number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there might be two of them. There might be two 303s, one at this location, one at this location, that are completely different customers. You try to merge them along with the associated tables, you're going to have all kinds of problems. If you had used a GUID, when you merge data together, it is night and day difference as far as in trying to get everything to work, you know. So GUIDs are superior, and you see that with what Microsoft does and what large corporate enterprises, what they do with IDs. Typically they use GUIDs. Yeah. So, and then the one exception that I do is email addresses. So an email address, especially within an organization, let's say I've got an email address, Darren.Neese, at their domain. How many other ones are there? And even if there was another Darren Neese they would end up getting, if I was there first, they wouldn't get my email address. They would get something a little different. So it would be unique. Sometimes as a foreign key in other tables for the user table, I will use their email address rather than an intra ID or the ID from the users table, because when you open up the table and look at it, instead of seeing like 303, you see an email address like, oh, yeah, that's Darren. It's Darren.Neese at domain, And also, it makes it very easy if I were to filter someone's data based on, let's say I wanted to display records that user created or modified. I could filter that based on their email address really easily. So that's a thought. And I'm not saying that that's the absolute best practice, but I feel like it's a good sort of balance for a few reasons that I outlined there. Based on my first question, so I don't want users to register on the app. The landing page has two buttons, log in as user and log as admin. Now I want to create views based on the user role. Okay. Yeah, I have a video. Let me see if I can find it really quick. And I'm going to say Darren.Neese user code navigate. Let's see if that pulls it up. And it does. And this one, it was hard to communicate what this video was about. But for the people that watched it, I got a lot of good feedback on it. Okay, so I just shared that link there, and the title of it was that dynamically navigate to screens. So if you have different screens based on the button that they click on. So me as a software developer, I don't want to ask them, hey, are you a user or an admin? I just want to already know. What happens if they're not a manager and they just clicked on the manager button? I don't want them getting to the manager screen, I will upload the users in the back end, but when they use the app, I want a code that will first check user admin, then logs them in based on their role. Okay. That's that video link that I just shared with you. That is the one that will help you out well with that. Yeah. Okay, so here we got to 40. Now do realize in some of these there's multiple functions. And looks like for this 16 we lost one because there's no 17 there. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my list, and I think we got a good list of 40 40 functions. I put it in air quotes because some of these are multiples. Okay, so let's talk about the controls. Yeah, data listing controls, gallery, drop down, combo box, and I would say the modern table control is it's pretty awesome. I don't know if you guys have looked at that. Let me open up a new app. We need to be in Power Apps anyway, right? Okay. Now, while that's loading up, I want to share something with you guys. And it's what I was thinking about when I came up with the idea for this live stream. Okay. So, in a week and a half, no, in about a week, I would say, a week and 3 days, on the 23rd, I'm going to hold a 5-day boot camp. And this isn't like 2 hours a day. This is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a full day. When I taught classes as Microsoft certified trainer, that's how you do. You start class at 9 a.m. and then you end at 4. So it gives, people an extra hour to get to the location and get their coffee, get breakfast. And then you let them out an early before 5 to beat the traffic or whatever. But and then you have lab time and you have lunch in there, of course. But here is the agenda for these 5 days. And I thought to myself, if I only had 5 days to spend with somebody, what would it be that I'd want to instill in their brain? Like what are hey, these are the core things that you need to know. Okay. So day one is going to be focused on introduction and overview of Power Apps. So just in case somebody doesn't have the basics down, okay, you do need a good introduction to the Power Platform in general. What is Power Apps? What can it do? Okay, so there's going to be some sample apps in here. If you're just starting out, you need to do that. You need to see some good sample apps so you know what it's capable of. One of the biggest questions I get sometimes from people when they're looking to learn more about the accelerator program and considering signing up, which is a 6-month program that I offer, is this is the app that I need to do. Is that possible? And almost always the answer is yes, this is possible. Let's do it. Uh, and there's just a few reasons why you shouldn't use Power Apps. One of the big things is Power Apps was created and designed to be used within an organization. So if you're looking for like somebody to anonymously use your app and no, it's meant to be used within your organization. So that's probably the one thing. Now, if you want to know about the other reasons, I have a whole lesson on this in my crash course where I talk about, I think there were like either 5 or 7 different scenarios where you may not want to use Power Apps because it's just not a good fit. If you need something that must perform very well, very quickly, and it's very important, well, you might want to write a desktop or a native app, Windows app or something that will install into the operating system and not operate over the cloud and all that type of stuff. So I go into all that in the crash course. What time is the boot camp? If you guys don't mind, with your permission, I'd like to share with you guys a 3-minute video that explains a lot of the questions, like the time. Do I not have the date here? So the date is, when you say the time, I'm assuming the date, but maybe you mean the time, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. with an hour lunch in the middle. The 23rd of this month. Now, this is not included in the video that I'm about to show you. It's around, like, I think 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and I'll play it here in a moment. But most people have told me, hey, I can't attend. When's your next one? So I'm offering a price that it's going to be the lowest ever here, and it will never be this low ever again. This is, in fact, as the video will describe, this is the last day to get the best pricing. I call it the early bird pricing. Next week you'll still get $500 off, but if you sign up by the end of the day, you get another $500, so you get $1,000 off. So I'm as long as you're okay with that, I'd like to play that video for you guys. I gave you a lot of the details, and then you guys have any questions after that, let me know. And the reason why I said if somebody like, hey, I'm not available during that week, you're going to get the recordings, and then you're also going to get a voucher or a credit so that you can attend the next one whenever you can. Okay, so you really can't lose. So if you sign up today, it will never be this low again. So I would highly encourage, and the link should be in the video description, and has a page with all the information. It actually has all this information about what we're going to cover on each day. And what time zone? I'm in Orlando, so EST. So right now it is 11:18, not only in Orlando but also in New York, the whole eastern edge of the United States. So yeah, adjust that accordingly for whatever time zone that you're in here. So here we go. Your Power App skills over 5 days. I'm Darren Neese, a Microsoft MVP in the Power App space. I'm thrilled to announce our intensive Power Apps Bootcamp. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced Power Apps creator, this bootcamp will take your Power App skills to the next level. In just 5 days, you'll master the platform to create that app that you've been dreaming of building. Canvas apps, Dataverse and model-driven apps, professional database design, integration with other Microsoft services, and how to avoid Power Apps project disasters. Our hands-on approach includes a day-by-day curriculum, practical labs to reinforce your learning, and a capstone project to showcase your new skills for only $24.95. Now, how about just $14.95. From that, you'll gain the expertise to create powerful, custom business applications that will transform your organization or maybe a new client that wants to hire you for your great Power App skills. But if you're an early bird, you're going to pay less, a lot less. If you enroll in the boot camp the week before, you're going to save $500. But if you sign up this week, you'll save an additional $500. I love those that take swift action. Yes, you could get enrolled right now, 2 weeks before the boot camp for under $500. Are there any bonuses offered? Yes. In fact, the bonuses are worth more than $500. Have you heard about my Jumpstart Kit? The application template that I've been using for years. Right now it's selling for $97. What about my service desk ticketing system that took me over 35 weeks to record and to build that application and showing you guys how to do it every step of the way? I was selling that for $1,000. Right now I sell it for $497. And yes, you get all the files, all the code. You could take that MS app file, install it into your tenant, your environment, create all your SharePoint list, and boom, you've got yourself and your organization a great ticketing system in Power Apps. What about a whole year of Personal Pocket Coaching? Now, the Personal Pocket Coaching, those are bite-sized videos every day of the year. So you'll get a full year access to that. Because this year is a leap year, I'm providing 366 videos. That sells for $365. Now, my time is scarce, so if, let's say, somebody wanted a one-on-one tutoring session with me, I charge $250 an hour for that. You get that as a bonus as well. So I'm going through all those and showing all the value that you're getting on top of this 5-day boot camp. Don't miss this opportunity to boost your career and become a Power Apps Pro. Use the link down below now to secure your spot in our next Power Apps boot camp. Join us for 5 days that will change the way you work with Microsoft Power Apps. See you at the boot camp. Now drop down and give me 20. Do you guys like that? Fonzie says, that TikTok editing. Yeah. So I have somebody on my team, Martha. So she sometimes takes the editing to the next level. I think she did a great job. So I'm going to answer all these questions that have come up. Thanks for asking here. Let's see. Yeah, Elvis says, I'm going to put this on the screen so everybody can see it here. So it's Monday, September 23rd, and it is full 5 days. Yeah. Yeah, 2 p.m. for probably a lot of people in Europe. And I heard you talk about filtering items, content-based. I'd like to hear more about that. Okay, so let's do that here in a moment or two. We'll get into Power Apps, and I'll give you more specifics on that. Will the bootcamp be live on YouTube? we will be using Zoom as a platform. It's called Zoom Webinars. It's what I use for my workshops and also Monday night template building. We'll be using that, so you'll get a link to get into the Zoom. Um, it's called a webinar, although what I'm doing is a boot camp, not really a webinar. But it sort of streamlines online meetings and such. Um, so yeah, it won't be streamed as a public video on YouTube. And then now Elvis has got the link, and that link should be within the video description. So let me know if you guys have any questions on that. Um, so day one is mostly about the basics. Day two is how to manage projects. And what I find a lot of people, even if they learn how to do stuff in Power Apps, to become a pro, there's other stuff besides Power Apps that you really need to know. You need to understand the limitations of Power Apps and knowing when it's not the right tool. Can you imagine the embarrassment if your boss or a client asks you to do a Power App and then you get into it like, oh yeah, this doesn't work for what they need, you know? Do you know how to gather requirements properly? Do you know how to ask the right questions? There's all kinds of good stuff. A solid database design, you need to know that. And on each of these, we're going to have a lab. And I encourage everybody to come to the lab with an app idea in mind, because your labs are going to be based on that. And if you just can't come up with an idea, then I could provide an idea or have a list of good ideas to use Power Apps to build. So day 3 will be more on the advanced Canvas apps. And all this information is on that landing page that's linked below. Day 4, we're going to be spinning all in Dataverse and doing model-driven. Somebody asked about business rules. So we're going to be covering all that stuff, like business rules and workflows, forms and views, all this good stuff. And then the last day, there's going to be some other things that you really should know, integrating with other tools on the Power Platform. Power Automate, Power BI, creating PDFs, saving files, app deployment and sharing, performance optimizations, delegation considerations. These are more intermediate to advanced type of things that you definitely need to know about, best practices. And there's going to be a time for Q&A, advice, general feedback at the end. So if you guys have anything that you really wish was in there that it's not, let me know. You can put that in the comments below, but more preferably, if you go over to school and post it there, that would be great as well. Okay, if I see any other questions about the boot camp, this live stream wasn't meant to be all about the boot camp, but if you guys have any questions, I'm definitely going to answer those. Okay, so filtering items or content based on the user has created. Okay, well, let's do that. Okay, if you guys have a little use case, and as long as I can explain it or answer the question, and it won't take like an hour or two to answer it. I mean, this should only take probably 10 to 20 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I don't know. I'm going to try to answer it. Okay, guys. So let's go over to this list. I don't need that window anymore. Let me go find. Well, the thing is, if I create rows, it will be me that creates them all, right? But the query will be the same. Okay, so I'm going to use this SharePoint list for this. And what I do is I click on this little square here, and I get the link. Let's add it as a data source. I'll paste the link there. And look, there's my list. Now I'm going to create a button. And we got a a modern button here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you guys some bonus content right here. Check this out. Let's do a for all, because I want to create, I don't know, 100 records very quickly. How do you create 100 records very quickly? Well, this is it here. So we could use the sequence function, and the sequence is going to give me a list, or look, it's a table type of value, okay? And based on the source, it's going to give me 100 items, and it says there's an error in the formula because for all, it needs 2 parameters. And what I'm going to do down here is I am going to say collect. And if you want to do something quickly with data, I would recommend using a collection, because all the changes can occur in memory and it's lightning fast. There's no round trip to a database server, right? And then you patch it all within one shot at the end. So that's what I'm going to show you here. So we're going to do a collect. Let's create a collection called COL new records. And what are we going to put in there? Well, I'm going to use curly braces. That's how you express a record within the PowerFX language. And what we're going to do here is let's go into title. We know that every SharePoint list has a title. And I can say this record. What does this record do? Well, whatever we're looping through, this becomes, each time it loops through, this record is the current record we're on within that loop. So this record dot value. So if we looked at the sequence, look at what happened here. It created a single column table or collection, and it gave us 1 to 100. And we're going to take each of those and put them into a collection just like that. All right. And then at the bottom, I'm going to say patch. Now, typically patch has 3 arguments, but if you want to patch a table or a collection to your data source, you're going to patch the data source. So my list is the database. It's the data source. And then we're going to just give it the whole collection, which, okay, I want to say new records. I'm surprised it didn't give me IntelliSense for that. But we'll do it all in one shot. Not only that, but SharePoint will look to see if, let's say, at the beginning, you went and got all the records, and you went through a loop and you didn't update something, or you didn't update anything, and you try to patch it. SharePoint's smart enough to know that it doesn't need to patch anything. And so it's a smart type of patch, and it's good. Now, let's see if this works. I'm going to save this. Oh, look at that. Save early, save often. Okay, so let's, I'm going to say filter users records. There we go. I'm going, as soon as it's done saving, I guess I can go ahead and run it. And I'm going to hit this button. Let's see how long this takes. Do I see any champagne bubbles? I do not. Do I have a error? I don't see an error. Are the records here? I have to refresh. Usually you don't have to. Oh, look at that. Do you guys see how fast that was? Claudio says, ooh. And it looks like they're not in order, which is sort of weird. Look at that. Of course, okay, this is sorted by as a string. So of course 10 and 100 are going to be before like 20, right? That was really fast, wasn't it? Now, what would have happened if we patched inside of this, it would have been much slower. It might have been a second per record, or maybe half a second per record. Yeah. Okay. So we have data now. That's why I did that. Now, I'm going to show you one of these controls that I tell you that is probably important for you guys to know, and that is this table control. I'm going to bring up Obsidian. And okay, so those are functions. These are controls. The modern table control. Very good. And I'm going to use that SharePoint list as the data source. Oh, look at that. Okay. Put that button over there. Give us more space. You know what I might do? Elvis, would you be able to go into the Power Labs environment? I'm going to send this to you in Teams. And I would love for you to, I don't know, add 2 or 3 records in there. Or you could use my code here and create 100 of your own. Okay. Now, what I do want to display in here, I don't care about attachments. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to add a field called created by and also modified by. Now, which one are we going to filter on? Well, this is file name with extension. I don't care about that. Let me remove that. Okay, there we go. So look at this. Created by Darren, modified by Darren. So what I'm going to do here is let's filter this. Okay, let's do created. And if I'm only showing users their records, then it's not going to be modified by anybody else, right? So I'll just say created by. I'll say dot. Is there a created by? Created. Yeah, created by with a space. Okay. Dot. Let's look at their email, and we'll compare that with the current user's email. There we go. I'm going to refresh this. And I'm going to add a column. Hide or show columns. And I'm going to say created by. Let's see if Elvis has got his in here yet. Oh, there we go. Elvis has got 3 records. Okay. This is cool. Yeah, thank you for that, Elvis. Okay. So what if, so here is the, let me go full screen, and also let's zoom in a bit here. So when we look at the code, it's bigger. Okay. I'm going to format the text. Now, what happens if I said, I only want to look at records that aren't mine? Look at that. There's Elvis's records. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to go back through the comments here. If I wanted a gallery, say gallery A, to display information based on an entry selected in gallery B or C, would I need to use collections to do this, or is there another way? You don't have to use collections. You could just say, I'm trying to think. I have an example somewhere I could pull up, because it's going to be easier to show you this. So I'm going to come back to that. Oh, you tried unsuccessfully to use filter. Well, let's get that taken care of today, Angela. Yeah, let me see if I can pull up an app here that would be a great example. Yeah, I'd like to find a SharePoint list where I've got a decent amount of data. Yeah, let's open up this one. And I'm also going to open up my Jumpstart kit as well. There we go. Because effectively what we're doing are cascading lists controls. So let me get you cascading a video that I've done before that you'd be very interested in watching. And it's a 12-minute video that shows you how to do this. Now it does it with drop downs, but I'm going to try to do this with and it's not any harder doing it in with galleries. Let's try to get this. Yeah, 125 is good. Okay. Let's look at the data sources here. Hmm. Okay, I've got a good idea. Um, Let me show you an example of this. I've got a screen here, and we were working on this yesterday in the workshop. Now it looks like my video uh, it's doing something weird. Let me make sure that that gets fixed here. And we'll get back to this here. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So this is a list that allows me to manipulate all my SharePoint from a Canvas apps. So what do we have here? We have a listing of all of my SharePoint sites. You want to create a new SharePoint site? Boom. Type in all the information and it creates a site. You want to see an example of this? Let's call this AAA. Create the site, AAA. How long does it take to create a SharePoint site? I don't know, 5 seconds. Boom, there's a new SharePoint site. Isn't that cool? I think that's so cool. So it's a blank site, and it creates these 4 things for any SharePoint site. Okay, what if I need a new list? New list 1, 2, 3, 4. How long does it take to create 4 lists? 4 seconds? 5 seconds? All right. Okay, so it's called AAA. So I'm going to take out that search there and type AAA. And I, you know what I should have done is when I create this site, I need to refresh. Um, I need to go to a different table and come back because it goes and gets the fresh list of all the SharePoint sites. Because how often do SharePoint sites get created, right? Here on this list, it probably would make sense to do a refresh on that though. So for example, let me show you. I mean, we do use Power Automate Flows for this. So we get the SharePoint sites. Then we get the lists. So really these two items here should probably be at the end of this. Mm-hmm. There we go. So whenever we create a new site, it will automatically do that. Okay. Let me create a new site, BBB, create site, BBB. All right. So if I get out of here, okay. Looks like I got a bug, so I need to figure that out. I'll figure out later. I won't do this now. Yeah, for some reason maybe I'm searching on the wrong thing here. What the reason why I brought this screen up, guys, is even though these really aren't, it does use collections. Okay, you don't have to use collections for cascading. So this gallery here in the middle, these are all the current lists in this site. If I type in, I'm just going to go into mine because not all these SharePoint sites, they're for other people. So I'm going to click on Darren01. What's going to happen? These are all the lists that are in that site. Okay. So we are displaying things based on criteria of something else. How do we do that? Well, we are using collections, and on the onSelect event here, we go off and populate that collection. Okay. Now, once you click on a list, what are all the fields? Well, we're going to call Power Automate Flow, and we're going to get a list of all of them. Here they all are. Okay. So you're seeing cascading logic right here. I'm just having a hard time creating or getting an example of I do have an idea of doing this. Let me say I need to create a save as here, and I'll call this live stream, so it's not confused. I don't confuse this with another project. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is we have a collection here that is built based on, if you go to a screen, it keeps track of the user, where they're going. Okay. Now, what would be good, I'm going to go in here and let's see if I've got a template, Ultimate Power Apps template, and I click on it. Oh, we got all kinds of tables here. Look at that. Now, if I want to go check out that site, I just click on that icon, go to Site Contents, Data from Excel 200. That might actually be a great data source to use. No, that wouldn't. Those are just SVG icons. Okay, I'm going to create one, and it's going to be called screen use, and it's going to have all of these fields. This is everything that I capture. When somebody brings up a new screen, I capture all that. And I'm going to paste this over in Notepad++. Elvis says, we have Savage here. You guys remember in the Avengers when I think it was the main Avenger movie, the first one in the series, where they're dealing with Loki, and they said, "Oh yeah, well we got this power and this power, we got this advantage over you," and the Avengers like, "Yeah, but we have a Hulk, uh, we have a Savage." Savage is in the house along with Elvis. Yeah, Elvis says, "Yeah, that's the word, cascading." Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to show you a cool example of this. Ultimate Power Apps template. This is good. Now I'm going to create a new list and I'm going to call it screen use. Okay, so that's going to be created. So there's a new list. And I'm going to go down here. What should be the S's? Is that the bottom? Okay, so I'm going to refresh all my lists here. We got screen use. Okay, now it only has title right now, but I'm going to use this. Oh, yeah, screen use is in this, the gallery on the top, of course. Okay, so I click on screen use. What are all the fields for that? Here are all the fields. Now, all these fields are automatically created. Okay, so I need a spot for application name, single line of text, add. We already have title. We need to have a screen name, create. What about an app version? Done. What about the user's email address? Done. Any additional information? Done. What about a session string? Done. Okay, now that that's in there, what you want to do, I got two places where I do a clear collect. Now you need to take those out of there before adding in the data source. I'll go into app, on start, and what you'll notice here is, here we do a clear collect. Now, instead of clear collect, what we're going to do is a patch. There is the name of the database table or SharePoint list. Defaults, screen use. So we need to add a second parameter in there. But now it doesn't know what screen use is. Okay, so we're going to go over here. We're going to add some data. We're going to go find SharePoint. And let's go get the link for this SharePoint site, which is that. I'll paste it there. And at the bottom, we have screen use. Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to bring up the tree view. And I'm going to run the app on start again. And I'm going to click on each of these screens. There's the home screen. New screen. Oh, look at that. That's showing screen use. Look, we're adding. It's an audit trail of anything and everything the user does within an application, or at least the screens. You can add a new record for, like, say, a button click or something. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll go to tab screen. I just want to make sure there's a few records in there. And you know what else I'll do? I could share this with Elvis and have him click around. The problem is this is a dev environment. Only one person can access the dev environment. But we'll make sure we got a few records in here. Here's my copy controls from here. So guys, this is my Jumpstart kit. So if you sign up for the 5-day boot camp, you'll get this as a bonus to use in your apps. Okay, so let's go back with the Power Apps purple. Okay, we got one for modern controls, and here's the screen use. So we got lots of great records here now. And if we go over to the site contents, now Elvis, what you could do is you could use a copy of the Jumpstart kit, and you could connect to this. I just want to make sure that you have permission, and I'm going to make you an owner. I like the advanced permissions better than that one. Although this doesn't look very new. This looks like classic on-premise SharePoint is what this looks like. I'm going to go into owners and make sure that Elvis is in here. And I'll add you, Savage, as well. How about that? Oh, I misspelled Elvis. Okay, what about Savage? Savage. Show options. Yeah, I'll go ahead and send him an email. Oh, not David Savage. We want Savage. Savage, did I not add you in this tenant? Wow, I thought you were in here, man. I gotta add you in there. Elvis, wait, creating a SharePoint list from Power Apps is pretty. I think so too. I think it's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to use the Jumpstart kit, Elvis, and tie into that SharePoint list, which is screen use, and let me make sure you've got a link to that over here in Teams, and then you'll have your own records here. We'll add an application name, screen name, app version, info, user's email, session string, and of course the ID. I always want to see that, and who created it. There we go. We have some data here, and as the app is used, you'll amass tons of data. So what's good about this? Let's say you want to test out some delegation code. Eventually this is going to have. If your app is being used, especially by a lot of people over a lot of time, weeks or months, you're going to have probably thousands upon thousands of records in here, and you could do some delegation testing. So let's look at this list and think to ourselves, hey, how could we make a cascading type of thing here? Well, one thing we could do is we could have all the dates going into the past 30 days. You click on a date, and then you would see all the users that have used the app in those days, and then we'd have another gallery that shows what screens they went to. So this is actually going to be a great example. And I'm going to go to new screen. I have my own screen templates. So if I need a new screen, almost any screen is going to probably have a gallery and probably, buttons and some stuff. Now I do have another one called blank screen. So if you want to start from a blank slate, you could do that. But I'm going to duplicate this new screen. And I'm going to call this screen Cascading Galleries. Oop. Cascading Galleries. Yeah. Enjoying the live stream. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's duplicated it, and then what I'm going to do is get all this, take it out. Oh, that's not good. I don't know what happened there. It like made everything disappear for a second. Um, yeah, let's see here. So just to show you guys what the code of a screen on Visible looks like, this is it. Okay. So I turn the spinner on, then turn it off. And there we go. But this is it, this patch. Now this works on a collection or a real data source. Yeah, and Elvis, I just sent you the code in Teams. And you know what? I could put this patch in here if you guys, so somebody's following along and they want the code. There it is. No, it's not very pretty like that. All right. So we should have lots of good stuff there. Um, I'm going to take that label out, which is going to cause a problem with this label because everything is dynamically linked. Where is that label? That one right there, probably. Yeah. Delete. You guys like that? How the header sized with it? Okay. So what we could do, looking at I was thinking of dates going back, but all this test data is going to be using today, right? Um, so screen names, there's going to be a lot of variation in screen names. The app version. Sometimes you just need some really good test data. So what I want to do here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these and get a good copy before I start messing with it too much. And I just messed up that header, I think. I'll just move it over here. Very good. I'll do a copy and paste, and we'll have a third one. Okay. Okay, so the data source, I want to extract maybe the minutes out of it. And let's do a group by on this data source. On what field, I'm going to say created, and I'm going to use minutes. Yeah. Let's look at I'm looking at the function list because there's got to be we go time. Now I know that we could do something like text and we'll do second. And let me go look at this function here because it needs 3 arguments. Okay, and the third parameter, I think I want to see the same thing here. I want is it going to allow me to do that? Probably not. At first, I just want to use created and created. There we go. A new column name already exists. Let's see, population. I don't know that I want to use group by. I want to like in a real life scenario, you wouldn't want to do minutes anyway. What you'd want to do is for all on the last maybe the last 30 days, could be 90 days, it could be weeks, it could be months. And I'm going to say sequence. Let's go 30 days into the past. And what we'll do is we will start, we'll say date add. Now there's no function like date subtract. So you're always going to use that. If you need to go backwards, you just give it a negative number for the second parameter. So we're going to use today. I want to do a +1 there. And then I'm going to use this record dot value. And then I'm going to do subtract. So the thing is, I want today's date in there. So we need to see that for this example. Yeah. And then we're going to say time value dot days. Is that right? Is that actually a time units dot days? There we go. In fact, we don't even need screen use right now. We're just like, hey, give me the last 30 days. And then, well, let's look at this error. Yeah, the text. We're going to say this item dot value. Look at that. So today's the 14th, and it goes back 30 days. Okay. So in case anybody wanted to know how to do that, that's how you do that. Um, okay. So based on a day, then we're going to go, let's go look at this here. what we could do here is we'll do a distinct on, well, the screen use, and we'll look at all the different people that have used it in the last 30 days. And we're going to look at created by. Now, screen use will get very large, okay? So, and really we only want to look at, we want to filter it based on the day that we clicked on here. So let's do that. Let's filter this. Given that criteria. So I'm going to say created is the same thing as, so here I'm going to say gallery last 30 days. I'm going to go in there and copy the name of that. And I'm going to say dot selected dot value. And that is a date. Now for the created, it also is going to have the time in there. Right now, we only want to get at the day value itself. Okay. So if we just look at the date itself, there's also a time value in there as well. And it's always going to be midnight if there's no time provided. Now there is a time provided in created. So if Elvis clicks on it right now, it'd be 12:09. But if I compare today's date, 12:09 p.m. with that date, they're not going to equal the same. So what I want to do is sort of like cut off the time stuff out of there. So we're comparing the same elements. So I'm going to say date value. And that should give us what we need. Okay. And it's going to warn us about delegation. If you wanted to get around delegation, you could do a nested filter that would filter this based on the date. You could get the let me think. You would filter it based on, like, it doesn't matter what time it is, as long as it happened between midnight and midnight of the next day. You could filter in just by today, so that when it gets here, it doesn't matter if there's a delegation warning, because that was the exact data that you needed anyway. So there's always a way to sort of manage around delegation. So don't think it's like the end of the world. You just need to sort of think out of the box and think about your different options. So this should give us all the records. This should give us all the people that have done a screen use record on the given day. Oh, look at this. I wonder what this is. Dot value, dot display name. Oh, look at that. If I click on yesterday, there's nobody that's going to come up. Is that cool or what? I click on today. Oh, I got 2 people here. Well, let's use this. So we'll say gal. I'm going to call this app users. And now we're going to use whoever is selected over there. So now we're going to filter again. Okay, and we want to see where the created by dot display name. You know, if there's 2 John Smiths, that wouldn't work out. In a large enterprise, you're going to have more than 1 John Smith. So let's use their email, or we could use I think claims has a few pieces of information, but email should be unique within an organization, even a large organization. There's probably only one guy with the email bill@microsoft.com. There's no other Bill there that has that email. Equals the user that was selected dot selected, and we have these two pieces of information. But we need to get at their email. So because we used a distinct here, let's see. If you guys want to know how to use add columns, this is if you need information to be a part of a table and it's not in there. See, distinct gets rid of all the columns except the one that we named here. So we need to add columns. I'm going to add a column here called email. And the expression will be this is where a collection would make sense. Because at this point, outside of the distinct, we have access to the name. And I can use the name to go get an email, but if there's two John Smiths, you know what I mean? Um, trying to think, is there an easy way of getting based on their name? Let me go back and look at this here. Screen name. We have their email address here. We could just display the email address. That would actually make it better. Okay. Instead of giving us, we could say email. There we go. And then here we'll say full name. And because email is much more reliable than just a display name, then we could go off and find that. You guys want to see something cool? All right, so we could do a with block. All right, so this is going to get a little exciting, guys. We'll do a with block. No extra charge, guys. I'm showing you all my secrets. All right, so we're going to call this users from date. And then we'll take this whole filter thing, we'll put it there. So now we've got a result set that we can use here. And then we can we can do a lookup based on that. Yeah. Let's do a lookup on those users where it's going to be that right there. And we want their display name. That's not going to be, that's going to be created by display name format. Okay, that looks a little prettier. That should do it. Okay. Now, was that a little too complicated, or now we're not out of the woods yet, it looks like. So let's figure out what's going on here. Of course, my label isn't pointing at the right thing. So we'll say we're going to display the full name. Yikes. Yeah, there's still a little more that we need to do here. And what I'm going to say is as my record. And here I'll say and the created by dot email equals my record dot value. There we go. We lost Elvis for a second. We brought him back. All right. So over here, we can reference email. Whoa. Or value. Okay, value. Okay. So you can see Darren has been clicking around the app. He's been doing a lot of testing. Where Elvis, he's not doing his job. He's not really clicking around and doing stuff, you know? All right, if I click on the 13th, everything goes blank. I click on 14th, slowed it up. I click on Elvis, so many. So does that help you guys for knowing how to do cascading type of stuff? I know it got a little complicated there, but I'm hoping, and I would say what I would present to you is that when you have to do cascading, hopefully it's much more straightforward than what I was working with. What I'm dealing with here is a lack of good sample data. You know, I need to have database tables that would have your typical things that you might want to filter back, you know. So I'm going to go over to the comments and make sure. Elvis says that's cool. Data is king. He's back. He says hello. I'm using employee ID. Okay, very nice. So what you'd want to make sure is that, you know, you can filter based on that. So what's your leftmost, what's your first thing that you're in, you know, and then what's the second, and then what's the third, and then how do you match those things up and just filter based on what the previous one did. Elvis has left the building. Kendall, I think name formulas could have worked too. You know what I found, Kendall, that name formulas is not good for? It will go get it once. And let's say the data changes. It's not going to go get it again. If you want fresh new data, you got to use user-defined functions. That's what I learned. Now, if it gets it once, I don't know if it refreshes that eventually, but you know, if I were to create, okay, so let's check this out. Let's create a brand new screen. And I'm going to put in a label. I think classic labels are so much better than the modern labels, but whatever. Because you can't put a background color or a fill on a modern one. At least, you know, they're always coming out with new features and stuff. So maybe it won't always be like that. I'm going to go up to app and I'm going to go find formulas. Okay. Oh, okay. I got some code in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say FX today, and I'm going to say named formula. And I'm going to say now. And then I'm going to create one. Let's make sure we have user-defined functions. There we go. We have it. So what I'm going to do here is FX today user function equals now. Now, if we want this to be user-defined function, we do need parentheses in there. But we need to specify a return type, which is a date. Now, these types, it just makes me want to shake my head. Like, why can't we have all the types that PowerFX uses, like table and record? And thankfully, we do have color. And thankfully, we have date time. Here's date. I'm going to say date time. And there we go. So I'm going to show you how different these can be. And hopefully, it doesn't make a liar out of me. Microsoft's always changing stuff. All right. So we got name formula. Okay. Look at that. 12:24. Now that is the current time. Now, what I think what happened was it didn't generate that value until I asked for it. Now, in my system clock, it's now 12:25. So it's not updating. So if I go to this one here, I say FX user function, and I need parentheses. Now we got the 25. Now let's go in and do a text function around this, and we'll say hour, minute, second, and let's also put in milliseconds. Okay, so this is declarative type of code, so it is going to do it once. What if I had two buttons here? One for this one for this one. Okay, and then this button, I am going to cut that. I'm going to say update context, loc named formula, and it will be that. And I'll use that variable for this label. And if I click on it, it goes and gets it. 12:24. I click on the button again. 12:24. Guess what? It's 12:26 right now. All right, I'm going to cut that. I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to say update loc user defined function equals that. I'm going to take that that variable, put it here, save, run, click on it. Okay. So look at that, 12:27. Doesn't matter how many times I refresh that, it's a name formula. It's not going to go get me anything new. If I use a user-defined function, look at that. So remember that, guys. if you if you don't care if your code is lazy, use the name formula. you know, if it's never going to change, use the name formula. But if you need it to be accurate and go get up to date information, use a user defined function and integrate imperative code. What is imperative code? Well, I click on that button. Look at what I have in this property. It says on. That's imperative code. That means you go off and do something. Now, whenever we put it in here, the text, that's declarative. So in declarative type of stuff, it's going to go get it once. But let's say you don't want the users to see a button or you don't want them to have to click on it. Well, you could add a timer to do the same thing. Yeah. I'm going back to the comments here. If premium connectors are not an option, which would be better, using SharePoint or a Teams app using Dataverse? Ooh. I've never had to need to do a Dataverse for Teams project, but I probably would be looking into that. I'd probably do database for Teams. I've made SharePoint work and work well. There's a few downsides to SharePoint, one of which is it just can't handle the amount of data that Dataverse and SQL Server can. Of course, Dataverse for Teams, you have size limits. I think it's either 2 or 4 gigs. But it's going to perform well. And I've heard the development environment, whenever you do a Dataverse for Teams, it's not as nice as this Power Apps Studio. So there's that. Yeah. Microsoft doesn't make it easy. Always changing stuff. They are. And what's wild about it is it doesn't like, they have these wave releases, which are quarters. But you could wake up one day and they may have changed something that seems small, but it might have a big impact on you or your app. And it's like, whoa, what just happened? I was thinking of to use name formulas for lookup like email display name. Yeah. So in that case, that would probably work just fine. Like their name isn't going to change unless somebody gets married or wants to change their name for that reason, but it's not going to change over the course of somebody using an app in a day, right? So and for that type of data, I would speculate that using a name formula, just getting it once, of course, would be more efficient than it having to go out and get it fresh values. Yeah. Very nice. Okay. I think we've covered a lot today. Now, I have a request for you guys.
Out of this, a comment or even a like really helps the channel and lets people like you know this is good content. Much appreciated.
So I'm going to keep my eye on the comments here, just in case there's anything that I haven't responded to. But I'm hoping that you guys come to the 5-day boot camp. Not only do I think it's going to be fun, but you guys have the ability to go through the labs, ask me any questions, and I'm putting everything in there that I think that you would need to know. Let's say if you're starting a job, you're going to learn all the things that you really should have down pat before you're doing something professionally. Somebody asked a group in a room that I was in, and the question was, what's the difference between an amateur and a pro? I raised my hand. I'm like, the pro gets paid. The guy that doesn't get paid, you could say an amateur, but I would probably say hobbyist, right? He said, no, an amateur will practice enough till they get it right. A pro will practice enough that he never does it wrong. I was like, wow, that's really profound, So, quick question: do you do these every weekend? Yeah, I do. I do a live stream every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. EST on almost every single Saturday. If you're an accelerator student, now accelerator student is where I commit to you for 6 months, and I've got different packages. Some people go with the 12-month, and some people want a lifetime. The accelerator is, and somebody already asked, somebody's asked me a question. It's like, what's the difference between this 5-day boot camp and the accelerator? Well, think of the accelerator like a 6-month boot camp. I commit to you and your success and whatever goals that you have for your Power Apps career. And you get to meet with me like 6 times a week if you want to. You don't have to meet with me every day. I do take Sundays off. Uh, but So a lot of times people will sign up for the accelerator if they got some serious stuff going on. They're serious minded about it and they love Power Apps and they want to be the best they can be and they want to accelerate everything. I can't teach you everything in 5 days. I can teach you the most important stuff in 5 days. But if you want to build a solid career on Power Apps, I need to have a few months with you. Okay. So those things are two different. One is a 5-day, it's going to have some great stuff. Now, if you can't attend, I think, yeah, it looks like Franco put the information here. Thank you, Franco. It's from the 23rd, 27th. Now, here's a question. Let me make myself appear differently here. A little bigger. I know there's a lot of people that cannot attend that week. No worries, because they're all recorded and there's value to being there live, right? So you'll get a voucher or a credit, whatever needs to happen, so that you can attend one in the future. And I'm also considering, I need to talk this over with Franco. I'm considering, if you've paid for a boot camp, that you can come to all the boot camps in the future, on that. I mean, a boot camp is you're going to get all the basics, like basic training, right? And the things that I think that you should know, the most highest priority things that you should know with Power Apps. So if you pay for it, I would like to offer that you could come to any of the boot camps in the future. So let's say you can't make it, you get the recordings, and then you come to the live one maybe next month, okay? And then, I don't know, after a while, you just sort of like got out of Power Apps, and a year later, you're like, oh, yeah, I'll just sign up for the boot camp again because I've already paid for it. I can come back and redo the boot camp, So that's what I'd like to do. I need to confirm that with Franco and my other business partner, my wife. But let's see here. Good answer. Thank you for the link above. And Elvis, yeah, it's got the information there. Are you able to retrieve the list of tables in your environment? I was working on a flow last night and able to return the data, but could not get the data formatted. I almost want to know more about the context in which you're asking this. So tables within my environment, are you talking about database tables? And I would assume that you are, because you said tables and not list. SQL Server, I could do that very easy. I know exactly what to do for SQL Server. With Dataverse, I'm sure that we could use an HTTP request through Power Automate to get at that information. I would imagine. If it's a SharePoint list, I actually sort of showed you that. I've got that functionality here. So let's say within a SharePoint, well, I get all up. Well, I need to make myself, or put myself to the side here. This gallery went and got all the sites within my tenant, and this thing gets me all the lists for a particular site. And once you click here, I get all the fields down here, and I could go get all the data, So I am fairly confident, if you're talking about Dataverse, that you could. I would just have to look into it. Okay. I was in the my son's considering joining the Marines. He can't make up his mind between the Marines and the Navy. Boot camp is 3 months, and I believe the other branches of military, at least here in the U.S., The boot camps are different lengths. I think Marines is a little bit longer if I'm not mistaken. Navy here, okay. Hey, I'm not trying to cause a fight. I don't know if Navy here. It was 2 months when I got through it. It was a long time ago. Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, guys. Yeah, state averse tables. Okay. I need to look into that. Yeah, we definitely need to discuss that. Would that make a big difference in your decision, guys? Sign up for the boot camp that you could always take it in the future. Um, I don't know. I think about I sort of switch the roles in my head. If I was buying this, what would I want? And I typically try to offer everything that I would want in there. I like to treat people the way that I would be treated, and that's I think from that standpoint. I don't like to nickel and dime people. I like to offer people something that will last a long, long term. Um, if he wants if he wants to fight Marines, if he wants to tool around on ships, Navy, okay. I I think for a lot of young people, the idea of shooting guns and getting some action, they think maybe it's like the movies or something. It might seem, I don't know. I'm not wanting to get into um, all that, but I think he wants to work with his hands. Like he was talking about being a mechanic. Marines is the longest. Okay. Okay. It's a huge selling point to come back training whenever. Okay. And then Ben, I would snap up the current deal if that were the case. Oh, okay. Well, guys, today is the last day that you're ever going to get it for under $500. So if you look at any 5-day training, um, I think if you're looking at Microsoft official curriculum training, you're looking at around 3,000. Now, when I was teaching them back in uh, the early 2000s, I maintained my MCT certification, Microsoft Certified Trainer, and I would teach the Microsoft official curriculum training. And some of it I liked, some of it I didn't. Of course, I think mine is better. But the courses back then, like 2005, 2008, or 2000, well, actually, yeah, I was a trainer back in 2001, probably for a good 5 to 8 years. And those courses would sell around 2,200. And then with inflation, I guess they're more along the lines of 3,000 or 3,300. And then I've heard of some people I've talked to, they go off and do a boot camp either and I've heard something going up as high as 8 to 10,000, which I'm like, how can you absorb that much information? You know, I mean, you get me for 6 months on the accelerator for much less than that. So, so Ben, yeah, jump on that. And, I mean, if you think of all the bonuses, you get my jumpstart kit, um, my ultimate jumpstart kit here. So this guy, you get, well, it's all listed on the page. You can see it, all the bonuses that I put in there. I'm trying to offer just 3 packages, and the sense that I get from people when they come to the school or go to the website, it's like, what is all this stuff? I got a community and I've got this and I've got the accelerator. I've got, so I'm trying to condense everything into 3 packages. So it's just simple, you know, uh, when I go to a restaurant, they bring me, let's Cheesecake Factory. They bring me a menu that's this thick, and I'm like, I don't even want to open it. Just give me a cheeseburger. Yeah, I would like to attend live, but we'll struggle to find the time. Yeah, because of UK time. Okay. If I had at least 20 people, it doesn't have to be in the UK. It could just be people that want it. How early would I have to get up? You guys are like 5 hours ahead of me. So if we started at 9 your time, I'd have to get up at 4 a.m. Uh, that would be rough. That would be rough. But if there were enough people, I would say probably at least 20. Um, that would yeah, I might consider that. But let's see. That's funny. It does appear to be a steal of a deal at the current price. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. If you look at alternatives, I saw that. That's what I was trying to do. And one of the things I'm trying to do for you guys, um, Microsoft has recognized me as an MVP because of, in my mind, because of you guys' interest and you guys find the help that I provide helpful in what you're doing, and I'm at 20,000 subscribers. Um, and I just sort of wanted to provide uh, something valuable out there that hopefully is affordable for most people. If you want to get in, hopefully you can find the means to get in there. And I have a bunch of other offerings like workshops every week on Fridays and stuff. So yeah, I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for the effort from Pakistan. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. Um, Now, what I should probably do, let me see, where is the link here? Nope, that's not the right one. Let's go. This might take me a second. And I'd like to know from you guys, when you guys look at the outline for the boot camp, are there any topics that you think would be vital, should be in a boot camp that I don't have in there listed? And I'm going to bring it up right now, just sort of show you guys what that is. Okay, so here is the link. I'm going to bring it up. Okay, I'm going to make myself smaller here. Okay. So you got 10 hours left on today. That's as low as you will ever get it. So I am not offering this again, at least live. So the regular price will be the $14.95. If you don't get it by tonight, you'll still get a $500 discount if you register next week. Okay. But this week, I wanted to offer even more. Oh, this is cool. Okay. Maybe we could split the difference time-wise for a later start in the UK. Okay. So you don't have to start at 4 a.m. I typically get up at 6 a.m. It takes at least an hour for me to like really wake up. What about 7 a.m. my time? That would be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that'd be noon. Would you guys be able to do noon to 8 p.m.? I don't know. I don't know if that works for you guys or not. Maybe I could maybe get up 30 minutes before and drink extra coffee and start at 6 a.m. But I think that would be 11 a.m. So it's not that. I don't know. So we got some ideas to discuss internally in the team and see if there's enough interest. We're going to make it happen, though. Yeah, the list of subjects looks good. Okay, so as you guys think about it, let me know. So day one, we're gonna tackle the basics, and I think this collapses. Okay, day two. This is day two. I'm gonna cover the topics that I see time and time again where people are really struggling struggling with their project because they're not doing stuff right. Before and after they open up Power App Studio. Okay. So you're going to get all that. So we cover more advanced Canvas. So these are going to be the times that you guys can ask questions about stuff and, like we did the cascading type of stuff, I will either find it or make a quick video or something. It will be in there. Model driven, we're going to spend a whole day on Dataverse, and then we have some good integration down here. Now, just with the bonuses that are included, I mean, you get the personal pocket coach, the ticketing system, That I originally sold that for 1,000, and it took over 35 weeks to do that whole course. So over 40 hours of instruction in that. And then you get a one-on-one tutoring session with me. Okay. So, and I would suggest that you use the credit for your 1 hour one-on-one with me after the boot camp, because you're going to get tons of your questions answered here within the boot camp. And then if there just wasn't enough time or whatever, you could just book a one-on-one and have a list of questions, and we'll just sort of knock them out one by one. So let's see here. Oh, thanks for joining the live stream, guys. And I will, if you guys are interested in having a really good video to watch next, I've got 2 suggestions for you that I'll share now.
Your Power Apps.
Nope, that's the wrong one.
You're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, gotta hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to